Well, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this is a little something different other than knives. I'm actually out here in Wyoming near Hyattville with my older brother long range shooting. This is my older brother Ryan Lee, owner of Midwest Custom Timber Frames in Centralia, Missouri. So my brother Ryan is very much into long range shooting. Oh, you can see we got a couple rifles here. We got all the equipment, all the bells and whistles, and
That's
we're
one way to put it.
yeah, that's one way to put it. I mean, so we're out here shooting at different rocks, and I know it sounds kind of funny shooting at rocks, but this is a perfect target-rich environment out here for shooting at different rocks of different sizes and of different distances, and we get lots of other factors that come into play. And I wanted to talk about some of the long-range shooting factors, Ryan. So
Okay.
a lot of people have seen the movie Shooter with old Marky Mark Wahlberg,
Right.
and in that movie they shoot a guy from a mile away. Spoiler alert. Oh, a little late on that, but so they talk in one of the scenes in the movie. He talks about the all the different factors that can affect your shot. So I wanted to go through them and kind of explain to the audience all the different things, because it's not as simple as just looking through the scope and putting it on the crosshairs, is it?
No, there's a lot that goes into it, but we're lucky nowadays with ballistic softwares that it can happen pretty quickly. It's no longer where you take a gun and you shoot it at different ranges and you manually write down a dope chart like they did years ago.
Dope chart?
Yeah. Data on previous engagement. So you would take your rifle and you would shoot at different distances, and you would record what the drop of the bullet was, etc., so that when you were in the field shooting later, you had something to reference.
Oh, okay. So now all that information's been kind of figured out.
Well, yeah, it's all mathematical, and with technology today, we don't need to physically shoot to get dope.
Okay.
And on top of that, figuring it with software is a much more accurate solution as well.
So let's talk about each one of the different factors that are affecting our bullet as it flies through the air. So first, elevation. How does elevation affect our shot as it flies through the air?
Well, as the bullet, obviously we have gravity, and the whole time the bullet is flying through the air, gravity is affecting it. And so we have to correct up to compensate for the drop of the bullet.
Okay. Next, windage, probably the first one most people think of.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Windage is the hardest. You spend a lifetime learning to read wind, and some guys are really good at it, and I'm still learning.
Well, and so one of the things is, like, we use one of these tools here, such as a Kestrel, and we can tell, the speed of the wind, but that's only the speed of the wind where we're sitting,
Right.
where we're shooting.
Absolutely.
So how do we fight the wind in some of these distances at where our target could be, like in our canyons that we're shooting at right now?
If you're lucky enough to have some Mirage, you can look at Mirage downrange, which is the it's the little waves that you see through the air when you're driving down the highway on a sunny day. We can use that to help determine what the wind is doing downrange. Across these canyons, though, they're so deep that you don't get a lot of Mirage, even on a bright sunny day. So we're kind of looking for what vegetation's doing at the target. Is the vegetation at the target doing the same thing that it's doing where we're standing, roughly? Some kind of reference. And then we also need to think about, we're shooting across a wide open canyon. The wind is going to be stronger in that canyon than it is at our shooting location and at the target. So we need to, in most cases, correct for more windage than what we are measuring at the shooting location.
And that's, as you said, a huge learning curve to
It
that.
is. Yeah. It takes practice and.
And when you make wind corrections, it's a lot of times immediate corrections as fast as we can,
Right.
so that our wind doesn't change. And
But
if the wind does change,
But that's why we come up to shoot in these areas, because we can get practice reading wind. Way more so where I'm from in Missouri, you can lay out in a flat field, a bean field, and you can almost measure what it's doing at your location, and you can almost guarantee it's doing the same thing the whole way to the target. And you really you set up for a shot, and you only get to make one wind call, because it's the wind is just so much easier to deal with there. And out here it becomes a real challenge. And you can even get the wind pushing your bullet down if it's coming from your back and going down into the canyon, or if it's the wind coming straight at you, you can actually get lift on the bullet from the wind. And it just takes a lot of practice. And so
we've been learning a lot about it this weekend.
Yep, this is a very humbling sport.
So another factor that's going into this that's mentioned in the movie is spindrift. Well, what exactly is spindrift?
Well, simply put, most barrels are right-hand twist barrels, so the bullet is spinning clockwise to stabilize the bullet in flight. And as it spins, it's maybe kind of think of one of them top spinning games, how the top would want to move one direction if it's spinning. The bullet does the same thing. As it's spinning, it wants to work its way towards the direction it's spinning.
Okay.
It's not a primary thing that most people that are shooting short distances need to worry about, though. It's not something that is a big effect until you start shooting longer ranges, a half mile plus.
Okay. Well, so then another thing that's also not as big of a factor until later is that's mentioned in the movie is Coriolis effect.
Yeah, I know. Everyone makes a big deal, and it is cool. So Coriolis is basically the rotation of the Earth, and once again, it's not something that people shooting, shorter distances, 400, 500, 600 yards even need to worry about. It's simply, we shoot a shot, and if we're shooting a mile plus and we've got a 3-4 second time of flight on the bullet, the Earth is still spinning while the bullet's in the air. So when the bullet gets to the target, it's in a different spot than when we pulled the trigger.
So we are shooting at where the target is essentially going to be.
Yes. It's just like an airplane. If an airplane wants to fly from Chicago to Florida, they don't point at Florida. They have to point to where Florida is going to be. So,
interesting. Good analogy. So, with that, an example we had earlier, we calculated at a 2,200 yard shot, I believe. It was, what was it? Was it?
Oh, for spindrift and Coriolis.
For Coriolis alone, it was around a foot.
Yeah, it was about half a minute. We weren't quite shooting straight north. And Coriolis depends on your latitude and the direction of fire also. But that's getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
But it is there. It is there, and you take some of these movies and they glorify some of these terms. When you're shooting across a canyon at beyond a mile, yeah, Coriolis is there and we want to correct for it. But at the end of the day, I can't read wind to within half a minute at 2,200 yards across a canyon.
Correct. So it's kind of one of those things.
We want to correct for it. And the apps do that naturally, which makes them, that's what makes them so valuable, is they're automatically correcting for spindrift and Coriolis. And it's just in there and we don't even think about it, and, but it does affect the bullet.
So then going along with that, there's something I want to get to next, but there are other little factors as well. Some of them, temperature, pressure, humidity, all these other things also make a little bit of a small impact on where that bullet can land.
Oh, they make a big impact.
Impact.
Especially pressure and temperature and pressure.
Okay.
You can take that Orange Rifle's a .308, and I can shoot that in Missouri at 600 feet above sea level at 1,000 yards, and I need I don't know what I need for MOA, but I need a certain amount. And I come up into 7,000 feet where we're sitting, and I don't need as much elevation correction because the air's thinner. And it's a huge factor. So
Okay. So another term that you've mentioned that we need to probably describe is minute of angle. So in degrees, after a degree is one unit of measurement, and as we get smaller, kind of like in decimals, we divide up those degrees into minutes and seconds, and each 60 minutes and 60 seconds
right.
after minutes. But we use the term minute of angle in long-range shooting a lot. What is a minute of angle for purposes of shooting?
Simply put, a circle has 360 degrees in it. As you go around the circle, there's 360 degrees. There is 60 minutes of angle in each degree. And so these guns are set up as minute of angle guns. So, and it works out kind of nice because a minute of angle is basically 1 inch at 100 yards or 10 inches at 1,000 yards. Now, it's not exactly that, but it's very close. And so it's a nice thing, and our scopes are set up in quarter MOA turrets. So at, if we're shooting at 1,000 yards, I can correct 2.5 inches per click, roughly. And it's, and that's how we reference our targets. It's how we, dial our corrections on the scope. We also have our reticles, stadia lines, are hash marked out in MOA, so we can measure things and we can communicate better with the spotter or whoever as to, what we need to do to make a follow-up shot.
All right, so that's some of the basics, basic terms of long-range shooting, basics of all kind of the things about it. Now, let's talk about the rifles. So, not someone just buying a rifle off the shelf at Cabela's at long range, it's just not going to be successful. So what are some of the things in these rifles that how they're tuned, how they're built, what is different about them versus a factory rifle off the shelf?
Well, in a nutshell, it's just quality of components. Custom actions they hold extremely high tolerances when they make them. Custom, made barrels that, once again, extremely tight tolerances in the manufacturing. Good carbon fiber stocks that are stiff and rigid.
And that don't move.
And don't move. And just, good triggers. A good trigger is worth. I don't know. I'm not so sure a good trigger isn't worth a half a minute of accuracy. Just having a good crisp trigger with no creep or over travel. And then obviously, good mount and a good optic. You don't have to buy the most expensive optics. But you do want an optic that tracks true. That if you dial 10 minutes or 20 minutes on the gun, you dial that and you actually get it. And then, even more importantly, when you go back down to zero, you still have your 100-yard zero. That's probably the most important thing.
So that's what tracking of a scope is. Basically, what you dial on the dials
on the turret.
On the turret, it's going to do exactly what it says, and it's going to return exactly where it says.
Yeah, and it's like anything, you get what you pay for. You're not going to take a $50 Walmart scope and have any success out here, trying to make long-range shots, most likely. But,
Got you. So another thing about it, when I mentioned that stock that doesn't move, I should probably clarify that. So some of the humidity, in humidity and temperature changes, natural materials such as wood that a lot of stocks are made out of will actually move. I have a personal experience with that. I took my Caesar Guarini shotgun to Arizona one time, and after a few days, all of a sudden a part on it was sticking because the wood.
That's right.
It moved.
Yeah.
And then when I went back to my home state of Washington, it freed itself back up again. So that's what a wood stock would do on a rifle. It's going to move, which is going to change the harmonics of the barrel. It's going to change everything. And so carbon fiber good stocks, synthetic stocks.
And it's not that you can't shoot long range with a wood stock. You absolutely can. It's just that we are trying to eliminate every possible variable when we build these rifles. We want them consistent. We want them, everything is high quality components. And, I can put 100-yard zero on my gun in Missouri and come up here to Wyoming, and we ain't shot a 100-yard target all week.
It's too easy at this point.
Well, but what I'm saying is everything's quality, and these guns, rode in their Pelican cases 1,000 miles, and we got them out and started shooting.
Yep.
So, you want quality components. Obviously, what your budget will allow. So,
the next thing we should probably go into is to be a long range shooter, a successful, precise long range shooter. You don't have to be, but you almost have to be a hand loader as well.
Yeah, you don't have to be. I mean, but you want to be very. You want to. If you're not a hand loader, you're going to want to pick one of a handful of cartridges for your rifle that have quality factory ammunition available. I like 308. I call it my practice gun. That would be one. Obviously 6.5 Creedmoor is great factory ammo with that cartridge. Even up to 300 Win Mag, and but you're not going to want to, I don't know, for instance, get some off the wall caliber that's not popular and try to long range shoot without being able to hand load. It's probably not going to work. It could work, but it's not going to be the best way to go about it.
So talking about the process of hand loading, as these rifles are built very, very precisely, as the shooting we're doing, we have to be very precise. The hand loading has to be very precise too.
It's one of the most important parts.
So what are some of the things that you do to make, when you're loading your cartridges for these guns, that is making you successful?
Yeah, or what we're trying to do once again is eliminate variables. Factory ammunition is one size fits all. If, say that 308 or the other one's a 300 Win Mag, you buy factory ammo, it'll work in any of those guns and every other rifle. But what we're making is ammunition that fits our gun perfectly. And so that is where the hand loading really comes in, as we can create consistency with ammunition.
So some of the things you're doing is to consistency. You're not just using any primers, you're using match primers.
Yeah, they've seemed to work the best.
They have a quality control process through match primers that's much more consistent. And they are more expensive, but you get what you pay for.
Right.
Oh.
We want a powder. We want to pick a powder that doesn't vary with temperature. You want a very stable powder. Nowadays it's not hard to get stable powders, but there for a long time ago, you could gain 50, 60, 80 feet per second of velocity just from, a 10-degree day in winter when you chronograph the load, and then you come up here in the summer and it's 80, 90 degrees. Well, that extra velocity is going to make you hit high. So that's one thing that we're really looking for too.
So what about your brass?
Well, we want quality brass. If you can get Lapua, get it.
Or Norma?
Norma's kind of soft, but the quality control seems to be okay. But yeah, it's Lapua. And there's other good brands. There's ADG is making really good brass. Peterson's is making really good brass. It's just, you want a quality brass that's consistent and has a consistent volume inside the case.
And so that's why you would weigh your brass if you were going to do that.
Yeah, you could do that, and people do it. I haven't found it to be, for what the type of shooting we're doing, I haven't found it to be something that I thought was giving me enough of an advantage to make it worth the effort. That's kind of what I look for. I'll try anything, but if I don't see an advantage to it, then I'm not going to do it. So,
Okay. And then as far as bullets go,
yeah, you got to have a quality bullet. And what we want, we shoot high BC bullets, and BC is ballistic coefficient, which is just a measure of how efficiently the bullet flies through the air. So we want a bullet that flies through the air as efficient as possible. And so, yeah, we shoot, heavy for caliber, high BC bullets generally.
okay. So and it all goes down to, again, with the reloading components itself. It's you're paying good money for quality equipment.
You are, and it's a rabbit hole that can become endless, and I've been guilty of that some in the process. But
so the last thing, Ryan, for anybody that's looking to get into long range rifle shooting, what is one thing you want to warn them of, and one piece of advice to give them?
I'd say one of the biggest pieces of advice would be, we can't come up here in these canyons and shoot every day unless you're lucky enough to live out here. Dry firing at home. You can get so much good practice by just dry firing, on your back porch, at home. I do it all the time.
Well, in fact, dry firing, there was an Olympic shooter who's won a couple gold medals. His name's Lanny Basham. He actually only did live fire twice 1 year before his practice. He did all of his practicing by dry firing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He goes into he goes into mental management and everything. That's more of a competition thing. That's a mindset thing.
Right.
But so that's your piece of advice is
yeah, you just and obviously ammunition's expensive even if you hand load it. You can get a lot of quality practice by dry firing, and it doesn't cost anything. It's free, and you can literally do it, when you get home from work in the evening.
And your biggest warning for future long-range shooters?
My biggest warning would be, this is going to be a little bit of an opinion, but especially if you're looking to build a gun, be wary of the newest, best fad caliber or something like that is all over YouTube, or
they're trying.
We're not reinventing the wheel here. There's so many of these new cartridges that we've had cartridges for 50 plus years that do the exact same thing. They're just not brand new, and they're not cool, and they're not marketed. It's just like 308. 308s are not in style, but I love them.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, we're going to get back to shooting, but thanks for watching the video. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and we might do this again sometime. See you later.